First up, we'll call for the adoption of the agendas. Councillor Sharon.
Thank you. Moved by my second Councillor Neil, that Council adopt the meeting of the 2018.
Thank you, Councillor Sharon. Discussion.
Mayor, that we go to the clerk and one of the.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We'll wait in the mayor's report. This morning at City Hall, we held a flag-raising ceremony for World Autism Awareness Day. By participating in the 2018 Raise the Flag campaign, we are helping increase public awareness about autism spectrum disorder and the day-to-day issues people with autism and their families face. On behalf of Thorold City Council, I would like to offer congratulations to the Niagara Ice Dogs, who successfully eliminated the Oshawa Generals on Saturday night. This first-round playoff win has secured them a berth in a round to where they will face the Hamilton Bulldogs. This matchup is going to be a dogfight, but we're behind our team. Go Dogs, go. And that concludes my report. Up next is our regional council update. Councillor D'Angelo here to give us an update on items at the region. Oh, and by the way, congratulations on your election again as chair of the Niagara Regional Housing.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. And also, I just want to acknowledge the other members that were elected to the board. We have our own Karen Blackley from Thorold. She'll be serving as the treasurer. We also have James Haidt, the vice chair, and Betty Ann Baker, who just joined the board. She'll be the secretary for the board for the upcoming year. So we're pretty excited. Housing's a major topic, a lot of great stuff happening, and a lot of work still to be done. So I thought I'd give council a bit of an update on housing. I don't know if they received an email I sent out to the clerk just outlining the topics. So there's about 4 of them that I just wanted to go over a little bit. And if any of the councillors have questions, feel free to ask those as I go through the process. I did bring some handouts for the council. My computer decided today to take the day off, and it wasn't working very efficiently. So later tonight, I'm going to have to find out why it didn't want to work. But for now, I wanted to provide a bit of information. So there's some sheets here, and I'll just tie into them as I'm speaking. First item I just wanted to give a bit of acknowledgement to is this year, Niagara Regional Housing ran a surplus of $1.9 million. And there's page 1 has the information of all the departments at the region and also the ABCs, agency boards and commissions, how they fared over the past year. About 3/4 of the way down, you'll see Niagara Regional Housing. The surplus was $1.9 million. Court services actually lost money. Niagara Regional Police, they lost $7.6 million. This is all operating, and the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority lost a little bit, not very much. So what we did at Niagara Regional Housing with the surplus is what we've always done in previous years, is we've asked to allocate it to our reserves to build new units. So what happened in this case, it went to council. Regional council has the ultimate authority on our surplus. They decided to use it to mitigate and offset some of the losses in the other departments, most notably is the police. So our operating component of it went to offset other losses. But the good news is what happened was there was capital projects throughout the year had been completed. Many of them came in under budget and on time. There was a $6 million surplus in the capital reserve account that related to these closed out projects. So what happened was council then allocated $1.9 million, which is equivalent to our surplus, to owned units that we'd like to build in the future. And then I was able to get my counterparts to add another $400,000 to that, so we have $2.3 million, which is about 25% of a new project that we're trying to get underway in Niagara Falls. It's an intensification project. We own the units there. What we're doing is we're intensifying it, so we'll have additional 40 units built. We're looking at 2019 to get that project under the way. So we're going to be getting shovel ready, and then all we need is an announcement from the provincial or federal government with some additional funding, and then we'll be able to start that project without any delay. And we hope to get some announcements regarding that. So even though we had a surplus, the operating side was used for other purposes. We did get some capital, which is great news because we want to move forward with that. That just goes along with what's happening right now at Niagara Regional Housing. We're building 85 units in St. Catharines, and we have another project in Welland that'll add an additional 12 units, another intensification project that's underway right now. That takes care of the year-end transfer. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening at the region in terms of the alternative service delivery of social housing. They commissioned a report on this a while ago. They got a consultant to do some work on this. And the report came back just recently in March to Regional Council through the committee structure. And the recommendation of the consultant, there was 3 recommendations possible. One is to remain the same, with Niagara Regional Housing being the provider and the delivery of affordable housing in the Niagara region. They said there's 3 options. One is to remain the same, the current status quo. There's a hybrid model, which the region would deliver the programs, take care of the wait list and some other delivery of items, and then split off the rental of the own units into like a management company. So the company itself, that portion of regional housing would just maintain its own units, more or less act like a rental management company dealing with the capital works of the units and so forth. And then the other one is to take the whole NRH back into as a department of the region. That was another option. So the consultant recommended a hybrid model. What happened with that is it was recommended that in Niagara Regional Housing always wants to look at ways of doing things better, more efficiently. We're not objecting to the process of going through this, but we wanted a wholesome discussion with all the council, not just the Corporate Services Committee. So we recommended that they go to a committee of a whole meeting. So within 3 months, they're going to hold a committee of a whole meeting. They're going to look at staff is going to research this hybrid model to bring back the ability to implement it, the impacts, risks, and challenges. They're going to bring as much information back so that in 3 months, council in its entirety can look at this for an evening and try to come up with a decision point of what to do to keep going with this concept, to go back to the status quo or to just stop the process and all. So it's moving forward, but we're not sure where it's going, but at least it's going to a committee of a whole meeting so all of council can decide this. Also with the recommendation, there was a couple other ones that were quite notable, which are quite good. I'm just looking for the page that had it here. So it's page 4 of the handouts I gave you, but on the second page of it, staff is also being authorized to enter negotiations with private sector and community partners for the purpose of developing new affordable housing supply under joint partnership agreements. Final approval will always require council approval, but what we're doing at Regional Council on the housing standpoint is we're looking at different ways of doing things, not specifically the old method of building our own, but we're also looking at working with different partnerships. Also, item number 4, that was item number 3. Number 4 is the use of incremental tax financing be supported as a tool for staff to use in new affordable housing developments in which Niagara Region has ownership interest. So they're looking at different ways of adding stuff to the toolbox so that we could increase the supply of affordable housing, rent-geared to income housing, and housing in general because of the lack of supply. So there's a couple things that are going to be moving forward regardless of the alternative service delivery mechanism that's happening. The next one I just wanted to speak briefly on is NRH operating agreements. These are agreements that were established sometimes 20, 30 years ago with providers to have affordable housing, specifically rent-geared to income housing. In this case, what would happen, it was a flow-through because they were federal programs and some were provincial programs. So the money would come to Niagara Regional Housing, then they would supply it to the person that owns the building, the provider, and what it does is it offsets the market rent to what a person can afford to pay. So that the difference is what's called a subsidy. That's what these operating agreements are basically about, is providing that subsidy. What we've been doing is a lot of these agreements are hitting the 20 to 30-year range, so they're starting to expire, and we have quite a bit of them that are expiring. This year alone, we have 4 of them. So NRH has taken a very proactive approach on that. We don't want to lose any units, either rent-geared income or affordable, because there's just not a supply out there. Because if a place no longer exists, that means there's no other place for an individual to go. So we're trying to work with all the providers. We've been very successful. We have one of the highest extension rates of all Ontario. They actually asked the staff of NRH to appear at the ONFA conference, which is the Ontario Nonprofit Housing Association conference, to speak about this issue and how what we're doing here in Niagara that's being so successful working with our providers. And I know Niagara Regional Housing works quite diligently before the expiration. Like using the example of the 4 that are expiring this year, they've been working and trying to negotiate with the individuals going back to last year. And I just wanted to inform, because Thorold Nonprofit Housing is in that category, they have one that's expiring at the end of August. I just wanted to make it clear that Niagara Regional Housing wants to extend the subsidy. That comes out of our budget, so we're prepared for that and we want to move forward. And for Thorold, that's a pretty significant amount. It's about $160,000 that Niagara Regional Housing will be providing going forward on an annual basis to maintain the subsidies. So that's something, Thorold Nonprofit Housing, and I know there's 2 board members that sit here, that's something we're working with them right now to see how we could extend that going into the future. The other item I wanted to speak on just briefly, just getting back to the alternative service delivery, one of the key components, I think it might be a little premature to work towards a hybrid model, because I've also added page 5, and it's a letter from the Attorney General, or actually the Minister, reacting to the Attorney General's comments. And what they're doing on a provincial level is they're looking at social housing, and we're looking at affordable and social housing in Ontario, and they're going to provide some recommendations. So the way it's delivered may change from a provincial level. So I think it would be a little premature for the region to start changing their model at this point in time without getting the direction from the province, because there's going to be some stakeholder involvement. If you read the letter, they're going to go through how to manage the wait list. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening. So I think it's a little premature on the alternative service delivery to jump into that right now. But that's just my opinion on that. We'll see what regional council says at the end of the day. But with a provincial review, I think it might be best to wait a little bit and see what happens there. But I thought I'd enclose that so you could get a good understanding of what's happening there. And then the last item I just wanted to speak briefly on was the Niagara Regional Housing Property Tax Exemption. I know that there's a report coming forward later here at Council. The city staff have prepared. And I just wanted to speak briefly a little bit on the history of that and where it came from and how it's working. Back on beginning of January of 2016, Regional Council asked for a report on ways to eliminate property taxes on the NRH, Niagara Regional Housing owned units only. At that point in time, there wasn't a lot of funding coming available for housing, so we're looking at different and creative ways of seeing how can we get some more money into the pot to build more units to address the waiting list that keeps growing, and to make sure that individuals have a chance to get off that list more readily. So that happened in January. By the time a report came forward, several things have happened. And one of the concepts of the report of doing that was with affordable housing projects right now, there's a development charge waiver, meaning that they don't pay development charges. So it helps to make sure that affordable housing can be built at a lower cost and help it make it more sustainable. So the concept was to look at the property taxes and how that could be maneuvered so that it could provide more money into the pot. But again, as time changes, this report came forward originally prior to the national housing strategy that was announced by the federal government just recently in 2017. They're going to be making more funds available coming up, and hopefully they'll be providing providers with some funding to build more units, and that's across Canada, but I think the pot's going to be in the billions of dollars, so hopefully Niagara region and also Thorold could tap into that and get some affordable housing out of it. So that wasn't in place. And the other thing I wanted to point out, there's no right or wrong answer here. What we're doing from a regional council standpoint is trying to gather information from the local municipalities and how they feel I know the city of St. Catharines is supportive of this. They've had some discussions. I don't know exactly what they've settled on, and I've just heard that Welland is not supportive of this mechanism coming forward. So it's again, interacting with the local municipalities, because anything that's implemented is going to affect the local municipality, and I think there has to be discussion with it, not just here's what the region wants to do, that's it, let's move forward. It's like, let's work with our local municipalities. How do you want to be involved in affordable housing? Do you want to be involved in affordable housing? And at what level and at what participation? So that's a discussion for this council to come back with. I don't know what the consensus will be at the end of the day, but there's no right or wrong answer, because affordable housing does sit with the region. That's their mandate. But they're looking at creative ways of how and trying to increase the supply to benefit everyone. So that's why this is here for more from discussion. I appreciate the staff and the director, Maria Morrow, for putting the information forward. It was a good report with several options there for council. I think it was well done. So that basically concludes my comments on housing right now, but I'll be willing to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Councillor D'Angela? Seeing none, thank you very much for your report.
Okay, and just to further, if there's information here, if you want it more, I have more information. Like, I got the report here, I got other stuff. If anyone's so inclined to get further information, just give me a quick call, quick email, and I'll provide what I can. Once my computer's up and running, I'll get that out, or give me a call and I'll try to explain stuff if you need a little bit of an explanation with it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
We'll move into the adoption of the minutes. Regular council meeting minutes of March 20th, 2018. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know normally we stand up for this part, but does anybody have
No,
a
sit down,
problem
please.
with me
Stay,
just
you don't
sitting?
have,
All right. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Neal, that the regular council meeting held, regular council meeting minutes of March 20th, 2018 be hereby adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. General Committee meeting minutes of March 20th, 2018. Councillor Neal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ugolini, that the General Committee meeting minutes of March 20th, 2018 be hereby adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Declarations of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest? See none. There are no public meetings, no civic recognitions. We have one presentation, and that is Dan Pelche, Executive Director, Thorold Community Activities Group, and he's going to provide us an update of the TCAG operations. Welcome, gentlemen. And accompanying Dan is Ken Sentence. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor Luciani and members of council. I have received a message from our board president, Denise Palumba, that she's hung up at work, and she may join us while we're going along. Also with us tonight is board member Kelly Liddycoat. And I just want to take an opportunity to add that on behalf of myself and the staff, and I think all of you who've seen how good a board we have, what a pleasure it is to work with the volunteers that give their time to lead the organization. I can speak to some of this before the slides come up. I don't know. Oh. We will need them eventually, but
Can't get it going?
It's not making the connection.
okay.
We have a bit of a malfunction. We'll get it corrected. And
Maybe it's Henry's computer and
I don't even see it.
The first thing we want to touch on is we were just going to flash our...
Excuse me, Dan, you're going to have to stand by the mic or the TV cameras won't pick you up.
We were going to quickly show you our mission and vision statement, not to read them off, but the important thing to remember about the TCAG is that we are a registered charity, and it's our mission and vision that set us apart from other service providers. We also wanted to give everyone a brief history of the TCAG in terms of our origin. We were established in 1981 after having served as a branch of the St. Catharines YMCA. The Thorold branch determined in the late 70s and early 80s that the citizens of Thorold would be best served as an independent organization. Many of you remember our founding executive director, Garth Hollett, and last week at our AGM, we were able to recognize Garth's achievements by honoring his children, Heather and Jason. We have 4 major programming areas. 2 of them are year-round, our licensed childcare and our recreation and leisure programming, and 2 major seasonal programs, day camp and co-ed recreational volleyball. Licensed childcare includes 3 primary age groups, starting with toddlers, age 15 months to 3 years. We have 10 spaces, and you can see services all day for working parents from 7:30 to 5:30. Preschool care, ages 3 to 5. We have 24 spaces for them. Again, all day care, Monday to Friday for working parents. And finally, our school age group, primarily age 6 to 12, but we also have a junior kindergarten, senior kindergarten group. That's before school every morning and after school every afternoon, and that includes pickup service and drop-off to and from the local primary schools for those children.
Hi, thanks for having us again. Throughout our history, until recently, we offered recreation and leisure programming through an a la carte model. Individuals usually registered for one program at a time, which was offered once per week, and they would need to re-register about every 10 weeks. After careful consideration and much planning, we changed over to an all-inclusive membership in 2016. This provided individuals and families with more variety of programs, more opportunity to participate, and much greater value. They can now come as much as they like throughout the week for the same cost as one class per week from the old a la carte model. We are well known for our high-quality recreation and leisure programs. I will now flip through some slides to give you an idea of the variety that we have.
I mentioned that we offer adult co-ed volleyball from early October till early May. 42 teams of up to 10 individuals on a team play in local schools with OVA officials, student scorekeepers, and it's Thursday. We're proud to say we provide a Thursday evening boom to the local pub sector after the games. You know what recreational athletes are like. Day camping is very important. We offer it throughout the summer, 9 to 10 weeks, plus during school holidays over Christmas and the March break. And you can see 800 registered weeks a year. That's a bit conservative. We had planned on 80 children per day this summer, and the lead programmer today advised me that we're probably going to need more space. Without advertising yet, we've had 10 people sign up for summer camp, and they've never been with us before. And it's not just about providing the camp. Again, it provides care for working parents, but it's a developmental program in a fun recreational environment.
We offer our facilities to several other community groups and private citizens. And this is the one that we're really excited about, TCAG. We are pleased and proud to declare that the TCAG has completed a full-scale turnaround of operation. Over the past 3 years, we have grown our participation levels by just under 50%. Our gross revenue has grown by 54%. We are very proud to be a leading employer of full and part-time employees, including students. We also have reinvested over $500,000 into our facility at Richmond Street. The next phase for the TCAG will be just as challenging. We must sustain the growth and quality that we have achieved in recent years. We believe, this is the one I'm excited about, we believe that we have the potential to soon outgrow 131 Richmond Street. In working with our stakeholders and partners, we are committing to the developing viable growth plans which best serve the residents of Greater Thorold. We would like to thank you for the opportunity to bring this update tonight. We value our relationship with the City of Thorold and look forward to continuing our partnership in the future. Thank you again.
Thank you, gentlemen. Are there any questions of our presenters? Councillor Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenters. Have you discussed anything with the city regarding, since you're growing and you may outgrow your present facilities or that, or move or expand the present facilities? Have you had discussions with the city regarding, because we're growing too, and one never knows when we might have to put for instance, another arena in the future, and other an extension onto the library, things of that nature.
We've had several informal discussions, and the most formalized foray into this issue, Councillor Neal, would have been when the city invited us as stakeholders into the strategic planning process that you started, I think it was about a year ago. And one of the goals that the city had identified in its draft strategic plan was to look at a multi-service facility that could include recreational space, library space, arenas, that type of thing. And we responded to senior staff and council with an intent to be available for discussions as they move forward. And at that same time, we also knew that it would take, if we were to really seriously take this type of thing on, we will likely, as a community, need to engage upper tier funding support from the province and the feds. We have had the opportunity to meet with federal representatives about the scope of the plan. It's just very conceptual at this point. Councillor Sharon was in the room with me when we met, and we just talked about what it might look like conceptually going forward. And it was encouraging to hear from their perspective that we were on track with that type of concept.
Councillor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to our presenters. It's a good time right now because, we'll make sure that you're part of the process, so make sure that you contact the operations department, because we'll be engaging in our new Parks, Trails, and Recreation Master Plan, and your input would be important in that, so we'll make sure that you get engaged in that. The other question I have is, through your work, both of you are part of the Parks, Trail, and Recreation Committee. Can you bring those points forward as well to the Recreation Committee?
Of course, yes. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great presentation, gentlemen. It's nice to hear that things are booming and thriving on Richmond Street. I know in the past you offered programs to your rural areas such as Ellenburg and Port Robinson. We've got 2 underutilized halls up there. Is there any thought of heading that way at all?
Over the last couple of years, we have been invited into discussion with both of the community center groups. We'd be happy to continue that dialogue. Our mandate is to serve the community the best way we can, and we enjoy partnerships.
That'd be great. Like I say, they're way underutilized, so it'd be nice to get them filled and active again. Sounds good.
Thank you, yeah.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation.
If I can just take the liberty of leaving some copies of our annual report
Sure.
with Deputy Clerk
No problem.
Goulet for anyone who wasn't at our AGM. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Statement by Councillor, it's handling. We'll also talk about those. That's the specifics.
Okay, we'll move into statements by councillors, and first one is we have Councillor Hanley. You have a couple items you want to talk about?
Yes, sir. First, I'd like to talk about the Easter egg hunt that we had just this past Saturday at Beaver Dams Park. Protection Hose Company #1 Association. It was our 15th annual Easter egg hunt. Had a great turnout, a little chilly, but it was sunny out. We'd like to thank Henderson's, Thorold Lumber, Thorold Legion Canadian Corps, and the OTB for sponsoring the event. And I know that Port Robinson also had a very successful event too on Sunday with a morning breakfast. So all around the city was a great day for Easter egg hunting. Secondly, I'd like to talk in regards to downtown. I put this on downtown in regards to, we went to the park, and this is the 15th year we've held the Easter egg hunt, and probably the 15th year we've had to deal with fecal matter from the animals that frequent our park. It's becoming more and more, I think it's just the free-for-all out there. If you actually went around and see how much excrement is around the area. Not only that, I know Councillor Ugolini, probably Councillor Neal and Councillor Whalen have all heard it from individuals downtown in regards to, we have a big problem in downtown Thorold with feces from animals in our gardens, basically right on the sidewalks. Very bad in the corridor where the Quebec Bank is. Unfortunately, I do know that this is the 4th year of this term of council, and we've been struggling each year in regards to, it's the BIA's responsibility. I hate to see what this summer is going to be like, you know, all those beautiful storefronts that people have down there, and it hasn't been addressed. Like, I went down downtown again yesterday, Mr. Mayor, and to me it's very not pleasant sight for what we want to present to the public. So I know Councillor William may talk on to it and the BIA may address it, but I'm hoping that this summer, and I did mention it last year, and it was exactly like I said, they had the nice street cleanup for the event when they wanted to have the street clean, and other than that, it wasn't very good the rest of the year, I hate to say, but, and I know it's the BIA, or it should be the city's responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in response to that, I don't know whether anybody noticed that the pooper scooper bags are installed on the back, inside the recycling bins on Front Street. And it was 7,000 just went astray about a week and a half ago. Yes, somebody thought they were theirs and they stole all 7,000 bags. So other than catching the dogs on the spot, like our hands are tied, we don't know what else to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor.
Security cameras, downtown, simple as this. I hate to say it. You know, I know some businesses have them. One thing we could do, we could approach Mr. Scourge to tell you the truth, because he's got cameras in that laneway by Quebec Bank. I know there's cameras down there. We need to address the problem. I know some of the individuals that are doing it. I know other individuals in this room know who's responsible for doing it, and businesses downtown know who's responsible for doing it, but it's not being addressed. So myself personally, that's what we need to do.
Okay, Councillor Whalen, one more time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's 27 cameras we have on Front Street. So we've tried, but to pinpoint the exact spot and time, it's rough. So, and the BIA are working on it, so we're trying to resolve it, but things keep coming back to bite us.
Tendency this time of the year in the springtime, and I just read an article the other day in the Toronto Star with regards to downtown Toronto, with all the snow receding, all the garbage appears from under the snow. So this time of the year, some of that is normal. Okay, we have all these cameras, so we catch someone throwing their feces bag on the walkway. Do we call the police? Are they going to respond to that? Who do we call, and how do we identify the person who's done it? It's a difficult situation. I understand what both of you are saying, but somewhere along the line we have to look at it, and not forget about it. Keep it out front. But it's a very difficult issue to police. That's all I have to say. Okay. Just on the same item. No, you have to present it to the clerk before you can talk to it. Prior to the what's the deadline?
Monday at 4:30.
Monday at 4:30. You have to have your discussion papers into the clerk. Okay, that ends that. We're into notice of motions. Are there any notice of motions? Seeing none, we'll just.
Going to adoption of the committee minutes.
Okay, we're going to go right into adoption of the committee minutes to review for information purposes. Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Wilson, that the council receive and file the minutes of the committees of council, local boards, as presented.
All those in favor? Oh, speakers to those?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the manager of planning. Regarding the Committee of Adjustments, if there's a major project, I'm not talking about a small variance, but if there's a major project going on in this town and it goes to Committee of Adjustments, the problem we're having as councillors, and we're getting phone calls on projects that we don't even know what's going on. So if there's going to be a project, especially a major project, going to the Committee of Adjustments, can we be notified of what that is so that if we get a phone call, we'll be able to respond to that? And we had quite a few phone calls, I'm sure other councillors last week, regarding a project that went to the Committee of Adjustment, and then we get blindsided because we're not aware of what's going on. So we need to be in the loop, and so I'm asking if that is possible and how we can be made part of that. Because we need to know, otherwise it puts us in a bad position.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll have to think about that one. There's a public process that is set up by the Planning Act for Committee of Adjustment applications, including notification. Basically, everybody within 60 meters of the property would be notified of an application. So to go beyond the Planning Act is not the norm. You'll have to, if you could leave it with me to think about, I'd be happy to get back to you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And on any other items? Seeing none, then we will resolve into general committee. Again, I'll call for any conflicts of interest. Seeing none, I'll move on. There's no delegations. And I'll call for reports to be brought forward from consent. I have nobody here.
They just pass a motion.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion to move the reports on consent. Councillor Neal? All those in favor?
Do you want to speak to it?
Pardon me?
Do you want to speak to one?
Okay, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak to CC 2018-14. That's Dr. Kandasami's parking issues regarding parking spots. And he sent this letter for us to respond to. I'd like to refer this to our parking committee so that we can meet, because when we implemented the parking strategy downtown, one of the things we said is that we would meet and see how it went and see what we have to adjust. Well, his concern is a valid one. That is that if you buy a permit for a parking spot and then you take the second car, family car, that license plate isn't registered. So what he's asking is, in a two-car family, say that both plates are registered, but only one will be in the parking spot at any given time. And I think that's an issue we need to address at our next parking committee meeting. So can I refer that letter to the parking committee?
Thank you. Are there any other issues from consent? I have a couple things here. Okay, I think that is, sorry folks, I gotta get it on my computer. The one is, first question, summary of grant applications made by the City of Thorold, 2014 to 2018. Does that, I see all these numbers here. Does that include the grant we just got recently from the 5.4 million transit grant?
It does not, because it's not something we applied to.
So that's good. That's good to know. And I guess I would probably like to, a dollar breakdown of some of these items that we did get, but it's not there. It's not important to me. Okay, again, under consent items, City of Hamilton put a motion forward off, basically asking the school boards, public school boards, when they shut down a school, it should be offered up to the municipalities for $1. I would like us to support that motion by the City of Hamilton. And do I need a seconder?
Bring it back at the next council.
Okay, I'll put a motion on the floor to bring it back to the next council meeting. Okay? Thank you. And that's all the ones I want to speak about. And we'll move into discussion reports, CAO.
Call the question.
Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Discussion reports, CAO 2018-02. Funding request to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. That's Mr. Delwadia, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. the recommendations are that the staff be directed to contact the Ministry of Municipal Affairs to seek additional funding to assist the influx of university students that resides in the city of Thorold, and that Thorold City Council request the support and endorsement of regional council to approach the province to assist with the securing funding to address the influx of university students that reside in the city of Thorold. That concludes the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a mover for the report? Councilor Ugolini. Speakers to the report. Councilor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the report in that part 2, where it says this Thorold City Council requests and support and endorsement of regional councillor. I'd like to also add, because it's in the report, and Brock University. We should get both. So my friendly amendment is to include Brock University, but the report and the nature of the report and the way it's written and and the way we have to go with it is excellent, because that's the way we have to approach this, but we should include Brock University.
Does the mover agree to the friendly amendment? Okay. I'll call a question. Are there any other speakers on the motion? Councilor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to ask a question here. I just want to make sure that we're clear here when we request this, that we're not looking to impact any funding that is currently given to the City of St. Catharines or the Niagara region.
Yep. Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, the intent of this request is that we don't get any heads and beds from the province. And the intent is not to ask them to relocate any of the funds that are being currently received by the City of St. Catharines or by the region. The request is that, yes, we are, because of the influx of students, it puts a strain on the City of Thorold with our limited resources that we have. So the intent is that if the province can able to support us in some fashion so that we could able to address the needs of the students and look after their safety by just providing additional bylaw officers and other staff to make sure that everybody who lives in the community is safe. So that's the intent. And we also want the region and Brock University to support us in this endeavor. So that's the whole purpose of the report. Thank you.
That's great, but again, I just want to make sure that we're very clear that we don't want to affect the funding that the City of St. Catharines or the region gets, because we need their support here.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and that's the intent, and that's, if you read, I've included that this request is not for relocation of existing funds from heads and beds, rather separate funding for the City of Thorold. So I think that was very clear that we don't want any relocation of funding. We are requesting funding from a separate source to us for this particular initiative. And second thing is, you're right that the intent is not that they are going to reject the funding. It's a new funding that we are seeking on a multi-year, on a long-term basis to help us with the with this request. I think that's the intent. Thank you.
Councillor Sharon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is exactly what are we looking for funding for? Are we? Do you have a plan set up of exactly the kind of things that you are asking to be funded in order to make sure that things work out better for the community?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the first step is to start the dialogue with the ministry, just to see what we can get. Our request is that, as if you read the conclusion, it said the city is seeking financial assistance from the province to ensure student safety is met without applying undue pressure on the tax levy, which includes hiring additional bylaw enforcement and support staff. So that's our request, that if we get the funding, this is how we are going to utilize the funding for. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll call a motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. DF 2018-11, Niagara Regional Housing Property Tax Exemption. Ms. Morrow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that the region be advised that the city would support scenario 5 as follows: exempting Niagara Regional Housing properties and providing a grant to the local area municipalities to offset their tax impact, and reducing the Niagara Regional Housing and Regional Levy amount to an amount that would maintain the existing tax rate, and further that the grant be permanent and not a transitional measure. And this concludes the report.
Thank you, Ms. Morrow. Speakers to the report? Councilor Longo.
Yes, I'd like to, it's quite a long report. I read it a few times. I just want to make a few comments on it and give my opinion on what I believe we should do here. As Councillor D'Angelo said when he was speaking earlier, this is, they want some feedback from us, so I think we need to provide a few comments. And my comment would be that it seems to me like some portion of Niagara Regional Housing's budget is being downloaded to the local municipality. And I don't think that's proper. I think the mandate should come from Niagara Regional Housing to fund it on their own. We have enough projects to worry about in the city, and although it is a small amount, I think we're opening up the door here that in the future we could be asked to do more. When I read the report over, it seems to me like it's a shell game. We're just moving tax dollars around. There is only one taxpayer, and at the end of the day, it is a property tax increase no matter how we look at it, unless we want to cut services. And we don't want to do that in the city of Thorold. So my recommendation would be, or my thought would be, that we would just leave it as status quo. As Councillor D'Angelo mentioned, there's a national housing strategy that may soon be implemented where this funding can be found in other ways. So I don't think we need to go there at this point. I believe we should leave status quo and see what happens from there. And again, this isn't to be negative about affordable housing. Obviously, I think everybody in this room would support it. I think just the way that it's paid for, we need to be very careful. And I think leaving it in the region's hands is the best way to do it at this point. Thank you.
Okay. I have to get a mover for the report. Forgot to get a mover for Councillor Wilson. Thank you. Any other speakers to the report? Councillor Pion?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. You can look at it as a downloading, but as you pointed out, there's a shell game being played here, and at the end, it's always the same taxpayer. So whether we pay through one level of government or another, it's the same amount of taxes, so I don't really see it as a downloading issue. I see it as do we need to put more money into nonprofit housing, and my answer to that would be yes. Whether we pay it through Thorold taxes or pay it through Niagara Regional taxes, I think it's the same taxpayer. So the real question is here, could we allocate a little bit more money towards nonprofit housing? And I think we should do that. So I'm in favor of this. Besides number 5, my understanding is that the recommendation also says that the subsidy that would come from the region would be permanent, in which case the impact financially is not that much. The subsidy that St. Catharines is getting when they agree to go along with this is going to run out after a few years, and then there will be an impact to them. So first of all, I'm not sure if they'll even accept our condition that the subsidy would be permanent, because their whole proposition is that the subsidies are temporary. So I really think whether we support number 5 or not, I think if we attach the condition that the subsidy has to be permanent, it's probably not going to be accepted anyway. So in a sense, this discussion is a moot point, but in principle, I think it should be supported. I'm actually more in favor of 3, because it would give more money, but 5, I can live with 5. But status quo, I think something needs to be done to improve the status quo.
Okay, any other speakers? Yeah, I tend to agree with Councillor Longo in terms of it keeping as status quo. I look at it, I look at it down the road, and again, it's not a big pile of money. We only have one building in Thorold that's from Niagara Regional Housing. But should we want more, and we know that we're not going to make tax dollars on it, we as a council would say, well, why should we accept this in our community if we're not going to not going to garner tax dollars from it? And there's a lot of other reasons why I would tend to say that it's difficult in terms of I can't find the right wording. Give me a second. I do agree with Ms. Morrow's second conclusion that, that we should not lose any revenue at all whatsoever. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'll just call a question, unless there's any other speakers. Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Longo said a minute ago, changing anything would hurt us. We heard earlier this evening that there was $1.9 million surplus. It's being reallocated to another municipality. We've asked for long-term care help for years. We're not getting any yet. So until we see somebody coming to Thorold, it'd be nice to support something like this. But I agree with you, but we should probably do anything at the present time.
I have Councillor Ugolini and Councillor Neal.
Yeah, I agree with what Councillor Longo said, because for two reasons. The regional mandate is affordable housing, but also the housing strategy. We don't know yet what kind of money's coming down the pipe from the housing strategy, so it may be premature to be doing anything till we know what chunk of change is coming to Niagara. And then my other concern is, if we do that, then is Thorold nonprofit housing going to come up to the plate, and anybody else that builds affordable housing unit for the same ask? So for that reason, I agree with Councillor Longo on option 1.
Councillor Neal.
I also agree with Councillor Longo. And my take on it is that Thorold nonprofit housing has been paying property taxes for over 30 years. And we've been able to be viable and build new housing during that period of time. So I don't think that we need to try and find that particular type of money in order to build any new units, or keep our units viable as they are. So I think status quo is the way to go.
Okay, that's, I know if I call a question, it looks like it's going to be defeated. Where do we go? I'll ask.
Just a point of order. The question right now is to go with the recommendation, which is option 5. So I just want to make clear what we're voting on.
That's what I'm doing. I'm just going to go to the clerk and count. Give me a minute.
So you call the question and defeat it, and then put a new motion on the floor.
Okay, I'll call a question then on the motion. I'll have Councillor Hanley speak first.
To what Councillor Longo had mentioned, again, I'm one also that agrees and that stuff. And could I ask for an amendment to the recommendation on the floor that we go status quo?
Okay, then we would have to vote on the amendment first, then defeat the original motion.
So I'd like to put a motion to the floor that in regards to Niagara Regional House and Property Tax Exemption, that it be status quo.
And you have to ask Councillor Longo to accept it?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, speakers to the amendment. We've all spoke on the amendment, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of the amendment? Thank you, that's carried. Now I'll call a question on the original motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That's defeated. Okay. Move on to Clerk's Department, CC 2018-16, Prince of Wales plaque location. And
thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that Thorold City Council provide direction as to their preferred location for the Prince of Wales plaque to be installed, that Heritage Thorold LACAC be engaged to provide guidance on appropriate informational signage on the significance of the award, proper placement of the award, and that costs associated with the installation of this plaque be funded by a general budget overrun. That concludes the report.
Thank you. Can I get a mover for the report, Councillor Sharon? And would you like to speak to it?
I move the report, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to speak to it if I can. I think this is what we have to do. We've actually gone to the community and we've asked them to give their input about where they would like to see the plaque go. I have a suggestion that we've had 2 or 3 different ideas brought forward. From what I understand, one was to put it in this room, and another one was to put it in front of one of the stores that are in downtown Thorold, and the third one was to put it in a tourism building which is owned by the city of Thorold. It would be my recommendation that the third area is the correct one to do, and with the help of Black Hat, to have a sign sitting right on the sidewalk indicating where it is and what it stands for and its importance to this city. And so that would not only make it available to the people who live in this community, but all the people who come to visit and go to the tourism office would have the opportunity to see it as well. I also believe the other articles, because there are 3 other pieces that we were given, the flag and the 2 documents that came, should be in this room. And therefore part of the city hall and for everyone to see, but also protected from the weather, where the other one is meant to be outside, meant to be attached to a building, and can be done in such a way that it's not going to be in any way endangered by someone trying to take it. There are ways of doing it, as 4 holes in one in each corner, because it's meant to be outside so people can see and last a long time. So I believe that that's where we should be going with this, and the city should be supporting it. It's not going to be a lot of money, but it's going to be something very important for people in the community and outside of this community to see because of its importance to the community.
Okay, are there any other speakers? I have one, Councillor Sharon, with regards to mounting the plaque. Will we mount it on a concrete monument of some sort? Nothing big or gaudy or anything, but...
No, to actually put it right in the building.
Right on the building?
On the building itself. It's meant to be placed on a building like that.
Okay.
But the other plaque, which is like the descriptions they have for the designated houses, and would be near the sidewalk that someone would be walking by, they could sit, they would stop, read that, and realize the plaque is on the building.
Okay. No other speakers, so Councillor Neal?
Yeah, are we going to add in that it will be put at the information center?
That would be an amendment, yeah. Okay, so call a question on the amendment. Go ahead.
So recommendation will read that Thorold City Council directs city staff to install the plaque at the tourism center.
Can I add, Mr. Mayor, we need to do it now. Or as soon as we possibly can, so that when people start visiting this community, it's there and ready to go.
When do we open up the tourist center? 1st of May? Okay. We've got a month to get it up. Okay. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Give me the papers. You got something?
No, because there's nothing this week.
Okay. I need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Ugolini, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Immediately following in camera, we're going to adopt bylaws 30 to 39.
Immediately following in camera, we're going to adopt
30 to 39.
30 to 39. Bylaws 30 to 39. So we're going in camera.